Alright, so Spanish 2, Chapter 6a, Notes over the irregular preterites. First, we've got some practice preterites here, and I think the reason that we're going to do that is that, well, you'll see soon. So, I've got my AR verb chart, and it is haste, o, amos, aron, and my ER-IR chart is iste, io, imos, ieron. No, I don't think we've done this since Christmas, or right before or right after Christmas. So a little bit of a refresher for you. So the first thing we do when we conjugate a verb is always take off the last two letters, right? When they're regular verbs. All right. And so that leaves me with habl. And if Maria is the subject, it's an AR verb, so I'm going to use this chart. And I start at the top and I say, does the subject include the word yo? No, it doesn't. Two? No, it doesn't. So I'm left at the bottom one, which is habló. Next one is Laura y tú. That's definitely two people. So I'm going to start up here because it's an AR verb. And I'm going to say, does this thing that I circled include the word blank y yo or the word nosotros? And it does not. So that means my answer is Aron, and that is estudiaron. And that was just me taking off the AR, which gave me estudi, and then I added the Aron, estudiaron. Yo, and then it's going to be camin. Again, it's an AR verb, so I start at the top and I say, does it include the word yo? Yes, it does. So my answer is caminé. And then comer, I'm going to take off the com, or I'm going to take off the and I'm going to be left with comer. Oh my goodness. I take off the ER and I'm going to be left with com. All right. And in the nosotros form, it's an ER-IR verb. It starts at the top. It's plural. I know that because it ends in an S. I start at the top. Does it include the word yo or nosotros? Yes, it does. So comimos. And el hombre, that's one person. Even if you don't know that that means the man, it is one person. So I'm going to take, and I'm going to write this lightly, and put that se as a placeholder right here. And then I'm going to put entrenar, right? All I did was split the verb right there at the se and put the se first and the whole verb last, okay? But I am going to take off those last two letters eventually, okay? So first things first, if I've got my reflexive pronoun chart, me, te, se, nos, se, and I say the subject is el hombre, it's one person, does not include the word yo or nosotros, so I'm going to, it's one person, doesn't include the word yo, it doesn't include the word two, so it gives me se, so it would stay se, and then I'm going to have entren, and I took off that AR ending, and it's one person, and it's entrenar, so it's this AR verb chart. Doesn't include the word yo, doesn't include the word to, so entreno. And that's how I would get that answer. All right, so now we're moving on to the weird ones. And the reason why we went over those is that the weird ones that we're learning this chapter are not as crazy as the weird ones from last chapter. Last chapter was a whole new verb chart for every single form of the verb. For this one, the only ones I have to pay attention to are the ones in these bottom boxes. And I told y'all this last week, so we're going to be looking at these bottom boxes only, okay? If it's not in that box, then it's going to follow the exact same thing that we just did. All I got to do is remove the ending and add on my new ending, okay? So the only verbs that are I to Y verbs are double vowel verbs. And they are only irregular in the el, ella, usted, and ellos, ellas, ustedes boxes, which is exactly what I said, right? Because this is the LA usted box, and this is the LA ustedes, ellos, ellas, ustedes box. For those of y'all who aren't clear on that, it's right here. LA and usted, ellos, ellas, ustedes. So it's just these bottom two boxes that are affected by I to Y verbs. And the same thing is going to go for the stem changing verbs when we get to them. These two sets only change in these bottom boxes. So that'll make your life easy because every other box is going to be normal. So verbs that end in UIR only have an accent in the yo form. The other, okay, so I just went ahead and filled this out so that we could talk about it. Now, I don't know what I just said because it was 5 minutes ago for me, but let's start right here again. Verbs that end in UIR only have an accent on the I in the yo form and the LAN usted form, okay? That's the UIR verbs, like destruir and construir, all right? Now, as far as the other double vowel verbs, as in leer, creer, oír, and that's all the ones I can think of right now, those have an accent on every single form except for the ellos, ellas, and ustedes form. Okay? So I was trying to write it here, but it was right here. So on all forms except for those. So let's write this verb chart here. Let me get this filled out. You can hit pause to fill it out as well. So here's my verb charts again, and if you're looking, I've got accent there, accent there, accent there, accent there, no accent there. So that's the first rule, is that these are double vowel verbs, and they do not have an accent on the ellos, ellas, ustedes form, but they have an accent on every other form. Okay? The other thing that you might notice is that instead of what this really would be, if I just took off the E ending, the ER ending, and I put what would normally go in that chart, it would have an accent there anyway, but then I would have this ayo, and it doesn't look right with 3 vowels there. So this I becomes a Y, which is why they're called I to Y verbs, okay? So, anyway, let's fill in the blanks here. Same thing for leer. I became a Y. This would have been an I, but it became a Y. Leyó, oyó, oyeron. And it only happens in these boxes. And if you want to be specific about why it's happening in these boxes only, it's because, back to this verb chart, y'all see how there's an I and then another vowel and an I and another vowel, which is normally okay because it follows a consonant. But over here, it's following another vowel, which would make it 3 vowels in a row, like what I just said, creo. That would be weird. So I to Y, accent. Okay? So, Berta creyó las amigas, and that's because my subject is Berta. Here it is right here. Oh, you can't see that. Good job. All right. Las amigas no leyeron. And because it's the ellos, ellas, and ustedes box, because it's plural, and it does not include the word yo or nosotros, so it's this bottom box, which gets no accent. Mis amigas y yo oímos, that's going to keep the accent on the I.